President Trump, as you know, is, he says, fighting crime in what has become a controversial way. So the president says that he is now likely going to send in the military, the National Guard, into Chicago. You'll remember that he had done this in D.C. just a week or two ago. Now, some in Washington, D.C. welcomed this move. They welcomed the National Guard. They said that it did make them feel safer. Others thought that it was way out of line and that you shouldn't send the military in to do the job of law enforcement. But the president is making no secret that he does want to bring this approach to other cities.
When we're ready, we'll go in and we'll straighten out Chicago, just like we did D.C. Chicago is very dangerous, great place. I built great stuff there. I have the most beautiful building in Chicago, I think. But I hate to see what's happened to Chicago.
Yeah, he's got that big Trump building on the Chicago River, and his name is huge on that building there. It's not just Chicago, though, in the president's sights or D.C. He posted on Truth Social that the city of Baltimore, out of control and crime-ridden, he said, so he also is threatening to send the military into that city to, quote, clean up crime as well. Our correspondent Tara Mergener has been covering the D.C. federal takeover the past few days. She's joining us from the nation's capital. Good morning, Tara. So let's start in D.C. Has this takeover there, does it seem to have helped in terms of cutting crime?
You know, guys, the numbers are all over the place depending on where you look for your numbers. But some reported reductions do suggest the intervention may have had a quick and positive impact on public safety. Recall, on August 12th, Trump federalized D.C. police under Section 740, deploying 2,000 National Guard troops and federal agents to improve public safety. Now, the crime trends vary widely by crime. Violent crime, according to the average of the numbers, 22 to 26% is down. Carjackings down 83%, robberies down 46%, and car thefts down 21%. Homicides at least 1 versus 6 in the previous period. The thing is that experts caution that these short-term drops may not reflect the actual long-term trends. Meanwhile, other crimes in the district are flat. Assaults with a deadly weapon are up 14%. But experts say the data may also be affected by reporting methods, even some possible underreporting. This is all happening. I mentioned to you last week that about 80% of D.C. residents oppose the federal takeover, according to a new Washington Post SHAR poll. So the key takeaway is crime has dropped. It may be temporary, but the federal presence likely has helped in the immediate safety in Washington, D.C.
Tara, I appreciate you saying that the numbers are all over the place because it really does depend on how you crunch those statistics. One of the things that critics of this move have said is that crime was already coming down in D.C. In fact, it was at something like, some 30-year historic low after it had spiked the year before. So if it spiked the year before to a high, does that make, and then it came down 30%, do people feel safer or not safe? I mean, it's really just your perspective. And in terms of the crime numbers that you showed, assault with a deadly weapon was up, but the murder rate stayed flat. It's really tough to know if this has made a dent.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all, who's taking the poll, who's asking the questions, who's providing the numbers, where are the polls being taken, who's being asked. Definitely. Absolutely. It depends on, on all of that.
What about people who live outside the district and their concerns? Maybe you're pushing crime into our neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Are we seeing any evidence of that?
No, not quite yet, but there's a lot of concern about that. That crime moving on down the road is definitely a thing. So outside of Washington, D.C. and Prince George's County, Maryland, they're very concerned that it's just going to move into their community as you push it out of D.C. Northern Virginia, specifically Fairfax County, they are also very concerned. But again, at this point, it's all anecdotal. There's no hard data to suggest anything is happening yet. But again, this whole thing hasn't been going on for very long, only started August 12th.
And Tara, let's talk about some of the other cities where this may be coming to, where the president seems to have his sights set on them. So Baltimore, and he has, it seems like, some sort of personal beef with the governor, Wes Moore there. Is that right?
Well, it's definitely a heated exchange, and the tension seems to be building here, so for sure. Well, Governor Moore, he criticized Trump's federal intervention in D.C., calling it unconstitutional and a violation directly of the 10th Amendment. Now, this after Trump called Baltimore so far gone on crime, and he's threatening also to withhold federal funds for the Key Bridge and some other federal projects. So Moore invited Trump to see Baltimore's crime efforts, but the president said he's got to clean up the disaster first. Homicides in Baltimore, by the way, down 24% as of August 1st. Non-fatal shootings are down 19%. Crime, though, still above the national average. The White House said last week that Baltimore is number 4 in the nation in crime. Crime declines, they do follow a broader trend in Baltimore, by the way. Mayor Scott and Governor Moore say the federal intervention could hurt the progress. That is the main thing they're worried about in the decline, and Trump could interfere and set them back and support investment in community and based crime prevention. They believe that is the way to go in local control. It's important to note, guys, also that outside of Washington, D.C., the White House cannot control local police. If a governor calls up the National Guard, they can act like law enforcement, but without the governor's approval, Trump troops can only protect federal buildings and personnel. So how it all plays out, if it actually happens, should be super interesting.
Yeah, Tara, we know that Governor J.B. Pritzker in Illinois has said there's no emergency here. We don't need federal troops coming in. So the governor there taking a stand, and also crime down in Chicago, according to the latest statistics. But I was talking to a friend of mine who lives there who says what we actually need is more police officers. There are too many who are retiring and not enough young people coming in to join the force. That's what we really need to see in the city of Chicago. So this is something we're going to continue to watch.
Yeah.
Tara Mergener,
thank you. That's really interesting, because the truth is that the military are not trained for law enforcement purposes.
Correct.
They're just not. So here's our question of the day. Do you support the president using the National Guard to fight crime in DC or Chicago or any of the other cities that he is targeting? So there's always yes, never, yes, depends on the city. So basically yes, no, or depends on the city. We'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, scan that QR code right there on your screen, open your camera on your phone, and then you can weigh in and we'll check the results throughout the hour.